Okay, hello, NuPIC. This is a sprint planning session for Sprint 28, I think, August 8th. So we've got, I'm not sharing my screen, hold on. We've got Austin, Chayton, and Scott in the room, and Sutai is on the call. I'm going to share my screen and look over the current issues. And here they are. Can you see those well enough, Sutai, or do they need to be bigger?
No, that's pretty good.
Okay, so this is Sprint 27. I've already taken the liberty yesterday of going through some of the issues and moving them up into Sprint 28, especially some in sort of our satellite projects or demo projects like Cerebro 2, Chayton. I moved a lot of issues that were just kind of sitting there and thought, hey, somebody might want to grab this and work on it. So I tagged it with help wanted and moved it into the next sprint just to have a bigger pool of issues for people in the open source world to look through. Those are already in Sprint 28, so these are them. Some of them are already assigned and were created recently, and I just moved them over because I knew they weren't going to get worked on yet. But these gray ones, those are mostly like demo apps or Cerebro 2 or something that I thought, oh, could be some low-hanging fruit anybody might be able to jump in and grab. Those are the ones that are marked with help wanted. So I just wanted to get a bigger kind of a broader pool of potential issues people might view and say and have more opportunity to contribute to. So that's why I did that. I don't know if it's going to work, so we'll see. I might not do it again, but so we've already got a pretty heavy Sprint 28. Most of them are unassigned, help wanted issues. So what I want to do now is look through Sprint 27 and check on the status of some of these things. Let's look at pull requests first. Looks like there's only a couple of pull requests open, and I reviewed these yesterday and closed a couple of old pull requests, especially from Marek that have just been open for months, and I don't know what his status is. And so I let him know that I'm going to close them. If he's going to work on them, they can be reopened, and kept the issues open that were linked to the pull request. So if somebody wants to continue his work, they can always go find that remote branch and continue that work and create a new PR. So we'll take a look at those issues in a minute. But currently open are the porting network tests. These are C++ tests in NuPIC core, and we're having some discussion about the test framework catch and whether we want to make them BDD or regular old sort of unit test vanilla flavored formats. Utensil has been out lately because he just had a baby, so he hasn't contributed a lot to that, although he was the one that did all that work. And his last thing he did is actually convert all the BDD tests, the network tests, to normal unit test formats. So that made me think he might have acquiesced a bit on that and would be fine just merging it as it is.
He had said that he's okay with doing the regular style test, but on the condition that that's what people wanted. So I tried to feel out people's opinions on that stuff, and I got a couple responses. Subutai didn't have a strong opinion. Chayton, I think, shared my interest in trying to pick something pretty mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I can tell, catch isn't really that mainstream. So
yeah, one of the problems with Google tests, isn't that what it's called, just Google tests?
Yeah.
Is that you have to like package the binary up somehow, and it wasn't easy for me or Utensil to get like installed properly without compiling the binary in with it or something. But I don't know if I was just doing it wrong, but it seemed.
No, it takes a little. It's just slightly more complicated to link it in. It's not any more complicated than any other library, I don't think. Shouldn't be anyway. But that was one of the advantages of catch. It's just a single header file.
Right. Okay, well that is still open, and I really do not have much of an opinion on this. I want you guys to do what makes sense. So we were going to have a vote at some point on test format, and maybe we should talk about test framework, but we probably shouldn't do that here. if yeah, I mean, I'm more than happy to just merge this as is and use Sketch, but if you guys don't want to use Sketch, we need to have an alternative PR that uses Google tests, and I don't know that Utensil probably doesn't have the bandwidth to do that right now with the new baby girl. The other open PR is add options for controlling whether strip all number columns. You've just opened that pretty recently, so that just probably is waiting for a review. Let's see, issues. All right, moving on to issues. I think I'm gonna, let's just go right down the line here. Evaluate options for language-independent checkpoint serialization format for the CLA. So this is a big issue, and Viraj and Scott, I think, were working on this. And where did we end up with this? This is a serialization one. And we've even talked a bit about moving to C++11 at some point, which might totally change this approach. So I'm fine putting this on hold. Oh, I should have mentioned this up front. I will be out half of next sprint, so I won't be in next week. So when I get back, Scott and I have talked about this, and Chayton a bit too. We might want to have a discussion about actually moving to C++11, which would really affect this issue. Potentially, and so maybe we should just put this on, continue to keep this on hold until then.
Yeah, I think it is pretty important we get this done in the near future, just because it frees up a number of different things. But yeah, I agree with that. Austin actually apparently found a way to build NuPIC core and then reuse that same binary when doing the Python build, and that is one of the nice things about that is it means that we could distribute the binary to users, and they won't have to have us talk about the power stuff. Anyway, I think that's maybe more.
Okay. That might be good. Speaking of off topic, I mean, well, I've got something about pip to talk about, but I'll get to that in a minute. But along the same lines. Okay, so we'll keep this. We'll move that to Sprint 28, and we'll have another discussion about it mid Sprint 28. Austin has been working on NuPIC running on Solaris. You gave us a good summary of your progress on that. Maybe you could summarize the summary real quick.
Yeah, so NuPIC core is working great, and I submitted the changes upstream, and those are merged in. So NuPIC core officially has support for Solaris. There's a difference between it and some of the other platforms that we support because the dependencies aren't compiled and committed. Instead, there are instructions on how to build those. But once you build those, then it should work. Still running into issues on the NuPIC side, getting some of the bindings to link properly. So I have the CPP region built and running. We've got the engine internal binding built and working. Math and IO range are having some trouble. So you can import NuPIC, you can run some of the tests. You can import engine internal for bindings and it works, but you can't, anything that touches math or IO range, which is a lot of it, will still get a symbol not found error. So I'm just kind of blocked on finding time to work on that. It's just tracking down the right combination of arguments to the linker.
It sounds frustrating.
It is, because I don't really have a choice but to use the sum linker, which has its own quirks.
Right. So did you get any time in the other meeting to work on this? So I'm going to take this, I'm going to clear this out of the sprint and we'll remove the in progress. And hopefully at some point in the future you can
we didn't really talk about it, but basically I don't have any time to work on it except for nights and weekends.
Right.
Which are limited.
Understand. Okay. Hey, create a video tutorial and screencast for NuPIC geospatial. I did that.
I do want to revisit something.
Oh, sure.
That came out of that though, and Scott touched on it briefly. And part of working on NuPIC core, NuPIC on Solaris, one of the things that I would do is work on NuPIC core, and then like tweak some things, and then work on NuPIC. And what I had done was I decoupled the process of building NuPIC core with NuPIC. And I'd like to work on coming up with a formal process for that.
Yeah.
So that if someone else is in a similar sort of situation, they can explicitly build their own NuPIC core in one place and reuse it instead of having to implicitly build it as part of NuPIC.
No, that's great. We have to
that's
do
not
that.
captured in an issue or anything. So.
Okay. Well, it could be, right? It should be, I guess.
Should be.
Would you mind creating an issue? I mean, we do have an independent build of it, but I don't know that it creates any artifacts that are useful at all. So I guess that's the point, right? Create some useful, reusable artifacts from the core build.
Well, so the idea would be that you could have the static libnupIC core.a file somewhere on your system. And when you build NuPIC, you can just point your configuration to it instead of having to build it from source.
Right.
And so the idea is you can either you can build it with C++11, for example, and just reuse it and distribute it, or if you're like making tweaks or whatever, it just speeds up the process.
Okay. That's a good ID of that issue. I would appreciate it if you create an issue for it. And, good, because that's something that needs to be done eventually anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, I was about to close this. I did create a tutorial and screencast for this. I emailed the mailing list about it, and it's there. So that's done. Jeff Full was working on this dat.gui thing for Cerebro 2. We're kind of bouncing all over the place, but I think he's still planning on doing this, so I'm going to move it ahead. Reloading. Okay. Let's stick to NuPIC. Let's go by repository NuPIC. Okay. All right. The implementation factory thing, I've talked to David about this. He says he's going to work on it. So he said if he didn't get it done in Sprint 27, he'd do it in Sprint 28. So I'm moving into Sprint 28. The unit test stuff, we were just speaking about that. We said we were going to move that ahead. This is the issue for the pull request we spoke about. Okay, back to NuPIC. Improved wiki docs on encoders. Talked to Jeff about this. He said he would do it. So move that along. Python syntax errors are not reported properly during test runs. So I think this is important, but I don't know how to fix it. Scott, you and I talked about that. Well, Chet, we've all seen this problem. So Chaitin is the one who originally identified it. And it has something to do probably with the way we're running tests, as what you said. Yeah. So I don't know how to fix it, and I don't have time to look into it. So, but it is somewhat important. The good news is it's just syntax errors. It's not test failures, apparently. And the build will still fail. It just won't tell you why if there's a syntax error, which is frustrating and probably costs Chaitin a few hours of his life.
Good amount of time, actually.
Yeah. So it's important. It needs to be fixed. Hey, if anybody wants to help with that, I will tag this with help wanted. If you want to make a big impact in NuPIC, this would be a great way to do it because we don't know how to fix it. It has something to do with the way we're running PyTest, I believe. Okay, where am I? Close. Publish to PyPy automatically. I am still working on this pip thing. So I am publishing to PyPy. I've made a decent amount of progress on that, but the package that's going up there is not installable on all systems. So I've gotten at least one report of it working properly. The big problem is you must have CMake installed. You must have Git installed. You must have Python dev libraries installed. So there's these requirements outside of pip that need to be accomplished before pip install NuPIC will work. I don't know the best way to move ahead with it, but at the very least, I want the README to say, here's your system requirements, and then you can run pip install Python. I would really like to get the Git dependency out of here, but I can address that in a separate issue. First, I just want to be, if you have CMake, you have Git, you have Python dev headers, you should be able to run pip install NuPIC on any system. it's not quite working. There's still some stuff to work out. So I will continue to work on this next sprint. This is important. All of my work I've been doing on a branch because that's where I'm doing the deployments. So I don't really have a PR for this yet because the branch is really messy. And I'll clean it up first. Okay, here we got a few help wanted tasks here, documentation stuff. This would be a great place for somebody to jump in. We've got Model Factory, which is a pretty straightforward class. We'd like it to get documented, Doxygen syntax, if anybody's interested in helping out there. Simplified Travis CI build configuration. So our Travis config in NuPIC has gotten quite messy. And initially, I tried not to pull out any scripts just to try and keep all of the build logic in one place. But at this point, and got some advice from the Travis team, that's pretty typical to have a script that is like before install, a script for install, and especially one for Linux, one for OS X. So you can separate that logic out a bit. So I was thinking about trying to simplify that because you don't want to go look at our Travis CI config file. It's ugly and it's hard to understand. So I think it would probably be better if we had a CI folder with a few scripts in there that were environment specific. That would make a little bit more sense.
One thing that comes to mind for me is maybe that's it could also be a sign. I'm not trying to say anything here or offend anyone, but it could also be a sign that the Travis CI process is getting more complex than it needs to be.
Well, it could. I don't think it's the process. I think it's the interface because the big beef I have with it, and I'll show you, is that you've got things all over the place. You've got these nasty conditions all over. If you're OS X, if Linux, blah blah blah. The commands I would love if it was as simple as saying if Linux, run this block of shell commands. But the interface doesn't allow that. So what they're suggesting is say create a script called before install OS X if OS X run before install OS X. Otherwise run before install Linux, whatever. So it would be able to clean up all of these nasty conditions, and they get worse in different areas like this, and it's just kind of nasty. But I don't know, but I think it would at least clean up this area before install a lot.
So it really is all stuff specific to Travis. I was thinking that maybe we were having to do too much for our project, but this looks like just install NC make.
Right, just different methods of getting the dependencies pulled in. I think I could do this. I was waiting for the pip install PR to merge, so I'm still going to keep this and try and get it done. I don't know if I'm going to get it done in the 1 week I'll be available next sprint, but it's still a high priority for me. Talked about that. Okay, so there's this one which is about renaming files to proper snake case. David Ragazzi made a big list, and he was asking for some of them I think are okay to rename, then they won't break anything, and I told him to go ahead and do that. So he might take that up, which is fine. Which won't break model serialization. So here's one, when you run model.run, like CLA model.run, and you pass it the wrong type of data in for one of the fields, it just silently fails. So this was a ticket to check the model data type. Mark was working on this, but I believe this got pretty stalled. So I tagged it with help wanted and unassigned him. If anybody wants to work on this, you might have to fork or merge off of his PR, but he's already got some of the work done. There's not a whole lot of work left to be done on it. It just needs some cleanup. We've already done some code review. It needs a merge from master and a little bit of code review responses. It should be easy to fix. So help wanted on that. Mark has been busy. So I'm going to keep this in, and this is a way to make a real contribution to NuPIC that will help others. Good place to start. Another documentation task, which is document CLA model, which is a really crucial task, really crucial class in the OPF. Needs some Doxygen, syntax, documentation. Another help wanted, this could be a newbie task. All you need to do is look at the this wiki document on how to document and understand a bit of what the CLA model is doing. I'm going to refresh my page real quick, make sure that I'm getting all these. Okay, I forgot to move this one. This is a similar thing. It's an error, providing a better error when the swarm description has the wrong predicted field value. Mark again he was using the same PR to address this. So this is exactly the same situation as the previous ticket. That one PR has a fix apparently. Add tests to cover CLA model compute and TP region. Scott, you created this in response to a push you didn't have time to create tests for. So this is assigned to you. I don't know if you want it assigned to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I have. Okay. I'm getting kind of confused about which one this is. There's two issues that I was planning to do in this sprint. I don't know if I'm going to have time for both. So, the one that I wanted to do is the adding a parameter to the compute function on switch deploy so that we can use it as a random speed without learning.
Remind me when we get to the end, and I'll go through and look at your issues and make sure that they're what you expect. Okay. Documentation of inference types. I assigned this to myself, which I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. I don't know what. I'll take a look at my tickets and see what I should drop on.
This type of stuff, I'd like to start getting in the rhythm of doing like a little bit of this stuff each sprint between Chayton and me and Supatai and you and whoever.
Okay, well, let's take a look at just these, because it's either tagged wiki or documentation, so let's take a look at those at the end in sprint 28 and see if we can spread them out a little.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I move this into sprint 28. Update installation instructions, this is another documentation task. We'll do a review of the documentation tasks at the end of this. Okay, let's move, we've already done, let me refresh this and see. I gotta update this to refresh behind the scenes. All repos, all people, so there's only 2 more issues here. Hey, this is the issue I was just talking about. Fix this so that it doesn't refresh out from under me while I'm using it. Yes, I would like to do that. It's annoying. This issue keeps coming up. This issue only bothers me for repositories that do not have a Travis CI build. Anytime a PR is opened on those repos, they're immediately invalid, incorrectly marked as invalid. So this is still an issue. I can fix it manually, but it's a pain. So I would still like to get this fixed. I just, I don't think Utensil's going to have time to do it, but he was the one that did the original work on this. Okay. So I think we pushed through all of the Sprint 27 issues. All. Oh wait, we have these 2 PRs that I forgot to move. 1 and 2. Okay. Choose. Right. Sprints, all sprints. Okay, sprint 28, 43 tickets. Let's look at the documentation tasks. These are both unassigned. One is document CLA model and the other document model factory. And the other label was wiki, which I think there's a lot more. Where's wiki? There it is. It should be alphabetical. And so I'm assigned to 2 of these. Jeff's assigned to 1. Chayton's assigned to the other. Scott, do you want one of these, and then maybe then there's the CLA model and model factory Doxygen tickets? It's up to you. Would you rather do Wikidocs or Doxygen docs?
Are you asking me because what I said a second ago?
Yeah.
Well, I was kind of including what I already had assigned to me in that, so I am going to look through these. If there's one that's not going to be too much work, then
I suggest documenting inference types. That would be.
Yeah, that one's just kind of annoying because there's a bunch of them that we don't use.
I know.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, that's probably something.
Yeah, it's confuses a lot of people, including myself. All right, thank you. So the other one, so that'll be helpful. The other one is documentation. So I've got nobody assigned to do Doxygen syntax for CLA model or model factory. And I don't know that there will. We could just leave those and see if somebody picks them up, which is fine. So real quick, Scott, here's your issues. I want to make sure you're on board for this.
So the one that's not going to get done is
I don't know why you're
the odds. No.
probably not going to work on Fluent, are you?
No.
Let me take that out real quick.
I think that's actually done.
Tokenize?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Can you look at it again, actually? Yeah.
Oh, it just wasn't closed. Okay, great.
Whoa, send it back.
It's still a sign. Okay, so the wiki one, adding those tests is some odd.
This is probably, realistically, I'm not going to get all this stuff done. Probably odds versus behavior. That one is probably going to have to get onto the screen.
Okay.
That's like, seems definitely like a bug, but it doesn't manifest in our normal usage of this CLA, so I don't know.
But if you can get Jim Bridgewater to work on it, go for it.
Yeah.
He defined it, right?
Yeah, well, he actually had been trying to figure it out, and then I was going to start looking at it,
Okay.
so if he has more time, then maybe.
All right.
Yeah, these kind of things can be pretty tricky to nail down.
Yeah. Okay, but the other ones, this enable random SP, you're going to work on this in both core and NuPIC?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was kind of blocking some work, so.
Okay. Okay, let's see. Jade, you only have one thing, geospatial encoder details to wiki. Oh yeah, I assigned you this, I didn't tell you. I was hoping you could fill in the encoder's wiki page with details about the geospatial. All right. And anything else, people here? We've got a ton of unassigned issues, and like I said earlier, they mostly come from these support projects, satellite projects, or whatever, just trying to get more people involved, have a bigger pool of help-wanted issues. I don't know if putting them in the current sprint is the right thing to do, but I'm doing it. So let's see, all issues. So there's where we are at. There's a lot of issues in here, but most of them are unassigned, tagged with help one. Is there anything else we should talk about? I think we are good to go. I'll do the regularly scheduled maintenance of bumping the sprints and making sure all the GitHub issue tracking systems are up to date. Does anybody have any feedback or retrospective thoughts, emotions, passions for how this went, or what we should be doing different, anything like that?
I think the pip installable work was great.
If it worked, it would be great. It doesn't quite work, but yeah, that's tedious work. Yeah, I'll continue working on that when I get done. And oh, you know, we should mention this. I think Scott and I have talked, and I've talked with the rest of the team about this. But we've focused a lot on the usability for users of NuPIC over the past, I don't know, 6 months, a year since we open sourced. Really focused on making it easier for layman programmers, researchers, whatever, to come in and use NuPIC. And once we get pip install NuPIC working, and that's about as easy as it could possibly get for people, we think we should refocus on ease of development of NuPIC and try and work on some of the things that developers might want to make it easier. And now, because usability has become better over the past year, we have a larger user pool, which means we have a larger pool to draw contributors out of. So now if we focus on ease of development of NuPIC and developer tools and visualization tools and stuff like that, it'll be easier to take users out of that pool and turn them into developers of NuPIC. So it makes sense to do so. It was a good input from Scott Purdy on that, and I think we're going to focus on that after we get the pip install NuPIC, under our belt. So that's going to be sort of a different initiative in future sprints. So be prepared for that. All right, that's it. Sprint planning for Sprint 28 is over. So thanks everybody for joining in. Thank you, Subutai, for calling in.
Yep. Thanks. Have a good weekend and have a great vacation.
Thanks a lot. See you guys in 2 weeks.